we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
This is Oasis Church being destroyed by Muslims in our village, in our area. Please, we need help. We need help. We need security help. We need everybody's help. Please pray for us. This is Oasis Church in Past 9, under the help of you.
If you want your girls, bring back our Enwa. Bring back our Enwa.
This is life. But our follow and I are out of the house. It is brother Naaman that we don't know his whereabouts. Whether he's there in the plane, or they have taken him, or he has escaped somewhere, we don't know.
Gwamnan Zamfara wanda ake ce Dauda Lawal, saboda Dauda a gaya mamu abubuwan da muke kwatanta zamu.
Double If you're a billionaire in the United States, you benefited from this country. We owe something back to society.
Unless the rich countries stay generous, then the progress is going to stop and may even go into reverse.
Over 1 billion children have been vaccinated. We cut the childhood death rate, came down in half.
The Gates Foundation is one of the world's biggest, richest, most influential private philanthropic organizations. It prides itself on being practical, asking questions others weren't asking, and creating solutions.
How can a disease that kills millions of children have so few people involved in it?
The basic criticism is they're too big and powerful.
The Gates Foundation has decided that we will commit to spending $200 billion over the next 20 years. We will then close our doors.
So with the U.S. and other countries increasingly pulling back on foreign aid,
Trust takes a long time to build, but you can take it away so quickly.
can the Gates Foundation achieve their lofty goals over the next 20 years?
You know, at the end of the 20 years, there will be many other rich people.
The vast majority of those resources were to go back to society.
Welcome back to the SCIF on this Thursday. Thanks for joining us. We're going to make a declaration here. There's been a lot of concern, justifiably so, over anti-Semitism in the U.S., persecution of Jewish people at colleges, Islamophobia, persecution of Muslims or whatever. We're going to start talking about the Christians. We're going to make this a big focus of the network. Is just to do our part to bring awareness to the problem of persecution and killing of Christians globally. And so you'll see more on that. We'll just leave it at that. So that's going to be a big focus of CDM and in the entire network as we go forward. The golden age may be upon us. We are going to have Gawain Towler. We have a treat for you today, who is the number two in Brexit party and under Reform, comms guy. Now he's still part of Reform, but not in an official capacity. But he will be joining us in the second segment to discuss at length what's happening in the UK. President Trump is going to be signing a trade agreement in the Oval Office. Actually, it's happening right now. So that is breaking. It came out late last night. Trump posted that it's going to be the first in a very comprehensive deal. The markets are rallying. So the golden age may be here. And you saw Bill Gates there talking about giving away all his money and shutting down. That's an interesting concept. What is the agenda behind that? That is something we want to delve into and investigate over the next few weeks because he's talking a good game on the vaccine stuff there, but they've also tested and harmed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of children in Africa testing their vaccines. That's documented fact. And in fact, there's legal action against them in Africa and certain countries. We're going to go into that over the next few weeks, too, and talk about what's happening with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and what is actually going on there and why are they shutting down and why are they spending all their money. We want to know. We don't know the answers right now. Second hour, top of the hour, we're going to have Pete Blaber is going to come back because there's more coming out of Ukraine, different disclosures of what's going down in country. Pete's going to have all the information. This is another theme we're staying on. I know we keep talking about it, but we have expertise in it, and we're going to keep bringing you that expertise over time because we think it's extremely important to understand what's happening in Ukraine and the war needs to end. So today is May 7th. I'm your host, L Todd Wood. This is your mission brief. Actually, it's May 8th. I'm sorry. Trump trade deals start dropping in the Oval Office right now as we talk with the UK. The markets are rallying, so the golden age is here. All of the market correction since Liberation Day has been erased, and people are getting very positive. And there's still a lot of financial class and globalist class and the legacy media out there saying, well, this isn't going to work. Well, it's working. So stay tuned. South Korea channels U.S. election fraud, CCP style. That is an important story because there's pattern recognition. You know, my colleague on the Georgia show, Bill Quinn, talks all the time about pattern recognition. That's what we want to highlight here. We've talked about Bill Gates slinking away. German anti-Russian policy may have consequences. Where is Germany going? They are pushing back against Trump, which pushed back against them for banning the opposition party. So a lot going on in Germany, and it's not good. We'll talk about that. And then chaos in Moscow on the May Day parade. The airports were shut down. Absolute chaos across the country. We'll talk about that. So thanks for joining us today. This is the SCIF. We'll be right back after this break with Gawain Towler.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF, and I want to say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot, so thanks for all the comments coming in this morning. We have a treat for you now. Gawain Towler has been a writer for us for a long time. He's extremely insightful, extremely witty. I complained to him one time about some of the slang he was using in English, and he said, well, we call it English. So I'm going to bring Gawain in now, and we're going to talk about what's happening in the UK. How you doing, sir?
Very well indeed, and good to have you. Good to be back with you, Todd. What's happening? Well, obviously, just breaking is the free trade deal,
right?
But I haven't looked at the details of it, so I'm not. I think I'm rather sad to note that the claims that there might be a provision for freedom of speech in my country in any free trade deal that America was proposing, but I don't think that's in there, which is a bit of a shame. But I haven't looked at it closely, so I can't really judge.
Yeah.
But no, I think the reason you want me on is the sort of electoral.
Exactly. Yes.
What I would describe as I'm not a great fan of the colour my party uses, that Reform, and Nigel Farage one. I think they call it teal. It sounds like better than turquoise, but nonetheless, the teal tide is rising across these islands, and put it this way, there were elections last week. One for a member of the House of Commons, which I guess translates really to your House of Representatives. One, there were 6 for mayors, metropolitan mayors, and there were 1,680 for councils, which I suppose council members, as you have yourselves.
Right.
And we had, I think, 15 councils before Wednesday were held by the Conservative Party. 1 was held by Labour. And there were a number of councils which we call no overall control, i.e. there were some Labour, some Liberal, some Tory. On Wednesday, we did not hold any of these offices, not a single one. 0. At the end of the night of voting, we had won Labour's 16th safest parliamentary seat in Runcorn, which is not far from Liverpool.
Yeah.
So a working class area with some nice pretty bits outside. We had won that by the princely sum of 6 votes. Initially, we won it by 4 votes, and the Labour Party demanded a recount. So we increased our majority by 50%, which was rather magnificent. And Labour, that means that there's not a single safe seat left at this point. Only 10 months of Labour government, they have managed to, think of a better word, but shit the bed so badly that even one of their safest seats in the country, I mean, they hold 440 odd seats, and their 16th safest of those has now fallen to the Reform movement and Nigel Farage's movement. And then you look at the mayoralties. Again, we held none. We now hold 2, one in the city of Hull and one in the county of Lincolnshire. We didn't even make an effort in one in what's called North Tyneside, which is the Newcastle area, and we missed it by 440 votes. We literally didn't spend any money at all campaigning, and we missed it by 440 votes. There was a sort of an 18,000 majority there. In Doncaster, a working class, old mining area, very much Rust Belt, I suspect you'd call it. We got within 600 votes. It was previously a 10,000 majority for Labour. And in that one was a city that Labour held the council, and we have now taken that council from them. In Durham, the home of St Cuthbert and the mining unions, we're now controlling that council, taking it off mostly from Labour. And then in the rural counties, in the more farming districts and areas like that, of the 15 Tory councils, they no longer control any, and we have 9 of them. So this is a huge, of the 1,600 seats available, we won over 677. And Labour were expecting to pick up, because the Tories were, at the last time in 2021, when these were last voted on, it was at the time of Boris Johnson's peak popularity. It was a good night for the Tories. Labour were expected to pick up significantly. They lost 100 seats, mostly to us. Some to the Greens, to be fair. A couple of independents, what we call Gaza independents, the sort of sectarian independent politics of the city of Britain. But it was, and from my perspective, it's great, because watching all the commentators gritting their teeth, biting their tongue and saying, all right, Reform had a really good day. What are we going to do? And the problem they've got in the Conservative Party, they are being, we are tearing them to shreds, according to the BBC of all organisations. If they project the vote share from last Thursday, Reform are on 30%, Labour on 20%, and the Conservative Party are on 15%. That is staggering.
Staggering, yes.
I mean, only the opinion polls have bumped us up 3 points since then. So we're now hitting 30% in opinion polls, not just projections. And a couple of the sort of academic psephologist polling experts have done maps of projected Westminster seats, and it is literally a teal tide spreading across the country, in Wales, in the southwest, in the northeast, and all the rest of it. We haven't yet broken through in Scotland on these things, but opinion polls in Scotland for the Scottish elections that take place, the Edinburgh Parliament, the Holyrood, that take place next year, current opinion polls have Reform as second, ahead of Labour, ahead of the Conservatives, ahead of the Liberal Democrats, but behind the Scottish National Party. And in Wales, we are projected to come first or second in the Welsh elections that are taking place next year. This is an extinction level event for the Conservative Party and a very, very bad night for Labour.
So let me ask you, I mean, there's been a lot of criticism of Nigel Farage's, I guess, tactics and all this. He's moving too slow. And he always said, well, it's not the right time. Well, is it the right time now?
I think it might be.
Yeah.
I think it just might be. All the criticism, all the commentariat have been saying, oh, well, you're doing well in the polls, but you don't do well in real votes. You're great at the air war and the publicity. Well, they would be. I mean, I was running the publicity for years. But they're great at those things. But the ground game, the getting people walking down streets, knocking on doors, engaging with the population in their homes, at their doorstep, all that stuff, you're no good at that. Oh, you are good at that. And you've just proven it. And the point is, I mean, over the last since July, the membership of the party nationally, UK wide, has gone from 40,000 to 230,000.
Yeah,
that is an astonishing uptick. You're talking an average per constituency of about 600. And what's more, the other parties, the Tory party, are down to about 100,000. And most of those are people who have those annual tick over payments that they've forgotten about, because it's only 40 quid and they're not 40 pounds, and they hardly notice it as it goes out of their bank balance. Whereas all the people who've joined, and Labour are on about 300,000. So we're behind Labour in membership. But if you've got those annual tick over things, you're not that engaged. You just, yeah, okay, let it pass. If you notice it's gone. Whereas 190,000 people have joined in the last 10 months. I go to public meetings up and down the country, branches, and the enthusiasm is quite disturbing in some ways. I'm a lack of enthusiast in my life. I have faith, religion, all that stuff. Enthusiasm seems to be a little bit embarrassing. I am after all. However, they give us things to do. We want to go out. We want to work. We want to achieve. We want to push. There is a recognition about the people who are sympathetic to our cause. And it is now about a third of the population, just under, who are sympathetic to our cause. They see the idea of 5 more years of this catastrophically dull and damaging government, pushing its net zero agenda, pushing its diversity and inclusion agenda, with high taxes and high immigration. They see this as it may be an extinction level event for the Conservative Party, the rise of Reform, but another 5 years of Labour, we feel, may be an extinction level event for the United Kingdom as the country it is.
Of course, we've talked about that, yes.
Thus, it is of such paramount importance that we sort of keep our hand on the tiller, we maintain our course, and we do everything we can to save our country. You mentioned there were problems. Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Of course there are. In any war, and politics is warfare in a politer fashion, there are casualties.
Sure.
And sadly, in any war, there are blue-on-blue casualties. If you look at any war that ever existed, there are blue-on-blues. It's a shame, it's a pity, but that does not take away from the rectitude of the cause.
Friendly fire happens, for sure.
And I wish it didn't.
Yeah.
But it does. And it's always shaming, it's always embarrassing, it's always difficult, and it hurts. But it's,
and for our audience, you're talking about some of the internal squabbles inside Reform that have come out in the press, and the press is using, as effectively as they can to diminish your success.
It's pretty much all they've got.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all they've got.
So let me ask you: your membership is ticking up substantially. Is the money coming in? I mean, that's money, but is
it is. I mean, that's 5 million quid just
money, right?
Please. It's £5 million just in membership fees. You've got to remember that British politics isn't laden with cash in a way that American politics is. We are very much a different machine compared to America. The sheer weight of money that appears in American politics to us is completely chalk and cheese. It doesn't.
Well, that's in your favor. I mean, I wish we could get that back.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that being said, money follows success, doesn't it?
Sure.
Is it worth giving you money? Well, yeah, actually, it is. And so there obviously is more money is coming in our direction. And on Thursday, we had no power. Because of the 10 councils we run, we now run budgets of £11.8 billion per year.
Wow.
Yeah, people are. That's interesting. We want contracts with that.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. So the commercial world is suddenly, much as they despise it, they're basically going hold their nose, grit their teeth, and talk to us because they have to.
So is the on that note, is the whole ESG thing in the UK, is it in the US? It's kind of falling away. Is it what you mentioned, the commercial interests? Is it happening?
All right, something that you probably haven't picked up. The daughter of Baroness Hale, who was one of the Supreme Court judges who was trying to stop Brexit, she became famous because she wore a spider brooch and a hero of the pro-Europeans. Her daughter has just become, or is the chief executive of the London Stock Exchange. And her response to the fallback of the ESG agenda in America is to basically say, oh, you companies who can't put up with not having massive diversity quotas in America, come and set up in London because we're so keen on it. It's the most commercially diabolically stupid thing I've heard for a long time. It basically saying we are prepared to employ people on their characteristics rather than their capacity to do the job. It's basically saying come to Britain if you're rubbish.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how long that will last. I think commercial entities will start themselves, even with a government that is committed to those procedures and those dictates. I think what has happened in America since the election of Trump and the impact that's had on business in America and their fealty, their zealotry when it comes to these things, will obviously roll through here. It ain't good for business. And in the end, the bottom line is the bottom line. And so no matter how sort of an apparat type who gets into these public positions through their own sort of forget the papal conclave. The ability of these people to get into senior positions in British public life has been astonishing. And there's no white smoke, there's no black smoke. It happens completely in secret.
Yes, it was here too, all over the world, actually.
Yeah. But I think
Can I take a quick break and come back? Do
Yeah.
you have time for another segment? I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Thanks.
I'm kid.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, you use Alp? Yeah, I do, says my friend. So do I, says the cop. We all do. He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, drive safely, sir, and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're here with Gawain Towler, who was high up in the Brexit Party, then Reform, and now is still with Reform and engaging all around the world. You were just in the U.S., right? How did that go? Did you?
Yeah,
Did you have
that was
good
very
communi-
interesting.
Yeah.
Met a number of people in sort of K Street and administration, and talking to them, and hopefully I might have found some lucrative employment out of it. Who knows?
Ah, excellent, excellent.
That was the idea, after all. Since I was fired by the party as a worker, I'm still very much a supporter, clearly.
Right, right.
But I no longer have a guaranteed income on the end of the month. So coming over to the States was very much guaranteed income based.
Excellent.
I don't have one yet, but it's coming.
Excellent, excellent.
Well, what's very interesting here is I'm starting to be what we're seeing is, as I said, the commercial world, the corporate world is, as I say, sort of going, we really need to talk to these buggers. They're not going away. They're on 30%. They're leading the polls. We're now, in the last two pollsters, we're not just leading the polls, we're now leading the polls beyond the margin of error. So we're out beyond the margin of error ahead. Now, of course, look, let's not pretend otherwise. We can make an absolute hash of things. We're human, after all. It is entirely possible. Now we control budgets. Now we control local governance. It's imperative that we do our job properly, that we are able to deliver for the electors, deliver the services that are required. It's not just the big ticket stuff on immigration and so on and so forth. And
you have to govern, is what you're saying.
We have to govern, and that's hard work when there is restricted budgets and all the rest of it. We have to perform. And the first instruction that went out to our 10 councils is that from now on, no council will fly on any public building any flag other than the Union Jack, the Cross of St. George, or the county flag. That's it.
Good for you.
Cue great wails of whiffling from the LGBT plus Q whatever Scrabble word that you come up with. Oh, the Black Lives Matter lot. Tough. Deal with it.
Yeah, we've seen the same here with the trans flags and all that. I mean, we've had the same issues. Yeah.
But we're basically, that's it. They're not flying. And the thing that's good about that, this is a very cheap thing, let's be honest. A few flags is a few $100s, isn't it? I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm talking about good flags here. They're good linen cotton flags, none of this plastic rubbish. But the point is, it is cheap. It's not particularly important in a sort of real way, and yet it's vitally important in a symbolic way.
Oh, I think it's vitally important.
Yes. Of intent. We are not going to have politics off our buildings. The only politics that matter are the politics of our country. And
so,
not that we have any problem with anybody from any of these particular alphabet soup interests, but they don't get to use public buildings as their billboard. They don't get funded.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean there's no dislike. There's no antipathy towards. It's just that it's why do they get a free pass and the support of taxpayers when others don't? So end.
So
the next thing
I was going to say the BBC has that issue too.
Oh yeah, but we don't control that yet. But what we intend to do is introduce a mini Doge in each of these councils and go through every single budget line to make sure that there's value for money. Now, 80% of the spend of these councils is statutory obligations, things you can't not do.
Yeah.
This is wrong. And basically, the national government has pushed responsibility and spending that should be national spending on welfare, on children with special needs, on the elderly, onto local councils, making it impossible. What do people want from their local councils? They want the libraries, they want the parks, they want the museums, they want the railings painted, they want the potholes filled in the roads, all these things. That's what they're for. They really shouldn't be doing what the health service should be doing. And so, but we can't change that until we're in government. We can't change that from where we are. And so we understand and we recognize, and so do the population. They know full well that we can't change that, and we are constrained in that which we can do. But in that 20% discretionary, which is 2.5 billion quid, in that 20% discretionary, we're going to make absolutely sure that every pound spent is spent well, effectively, and on behalf of all the citizens within those jurisdictions, rather
Well,
than
that'll pay dividends down the road as people see that competence is
and
right.
this is why
Yeah.
yes, everybody's saying, "Oh, you're great, but now you've got responsibility." Yeah, we relish it, because if we have the ambition to be the government of our country, then we have to prove our ability to do it at this level.
Well, speaking of that, the British politics has been famously different than the U.S. It's much slower to enact change. There's polls out that say Nigel is now ahead of anyone else for number 10. How does the future look? War game us out over the next 3 to 5 years. What's going to happen?
Well, the next election's in 4.5 years. It's after the end of the Trump period. Oh, that's the other thing that's quite funny. All the commentators don't understand. I'm sorry to say this, but frank idiocy of threatening Canada. When I was in Washington, I did point out to some of my friends that this carry on about the 51st state and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And can we annex you? Remember 1814? That White House of yours took a bit of a singeing. And if necessary, mate, I'm coming and coming over that parallel if you're going to threaten us. That is the King's Dominion, and sod off. But the impact it had on Pierre Poilievre was disastrous and actually very bad for America. The impact it had on Pete Dutton in Australia was disastrous and very bad for Kansas and Kansuk and all the rest of it. It's a really, I'm sorry to say, some of the foreign policy behavior of your administration has not been good.
Well, I think, just to interject, I think there's a bigger play there. I don't think the Canadian conservative was actually a conservative, and I think Trump saw that. But that's a whole nother. I agree with you. I mean, the result was, yeah.
You threaten a sovereign nation with my king.
Yep,
no,
I hear you.
Sorry,
yeah,
much as I like Trump and all the rest of it, no. But that being said, the impact, all the commentariat in this country assume that the same impact will happen to us because Nigel Farage clearly has a good relationship with the White House and many people in the cabinet. But it didn't. And if in 4 years' time, when Trump's presidency ends, he has achieved even a third of his ambition, we will be able to point to success. Right now, it's very early days. It's all a bit chaotic. What I seem to learn from my time in Washington, the people I was talking to weren't really MAGA people. They were Bush 1 and 2 people, really.
Yes, sure.
And they were very sanguine about what's going on with the tariffs. Their feeling was that the American team they've thought the chess moves 5-6 moves down the line, whereas many of their opponents in the tariff war that's going on in the European Union have thought one move. You've got some very able people in your Treasury team and very able people in your trade team, people possibly the least MAGA of all the departments. And they've been thinking about this for a long time. So I think there's a steady as she goes aspect. Yes.
Well, there's also bigger geopolitical aspects to this, with NATO, with the wars, with national security. It's all intertwined, and that's what they've thought about. So I agree with you completely.
There's this assumption because, of course, over here, everybody knows that Trump is mad, stupid, and thick. Well, clearly isn't.
Yeah.
And his team are mad, stupid, and thick, which clearly they're not. And to me, and there are some people in the foreign policy world over here who sort of get it. But Ukraine, for example, Ukraine is a regional problem.
Yes.
It's not a global problem. Gaza, it's a local problem. Yemen,
Completely.
it's a local problem. Sudan, it's a local problem. The big international problem is China.
Yes.
And for the American regime, they recognize the
Let
threat.
me ask you: Is that the way Nigel sees the world?
Yes.
Okay.
But if China is the big threat to our security, to our way of life, to who we are, then the State Department and America under Trump seems to be thinking, right, you lot, shut up, stop it. You're a distraction. We've got a far bigger fish to fry. And the shaking things up in Ukraine, look, nobody thinks, from Trump down, I doubt there's any good American patriot that thinks that Russia invading Ukraine is a good thing. It just isn't. However, 5,000 people a week dying with absolutely no thought of movement on peace, which is what was happening until the inauguration, that is also a very bad thing. And our friends on the European continent were doing nothing to stop it.
Very bad. People were supposed to be helping the Ukrainians.
And I have to say, personally, I am quite amused that the Ukrainians are absolutely screwing up the 9th of May parade. Good. I'm glad. The Putin propaganda marvel that is the 9th of May is being absolutely buggered up. I'm delighted. And good on them. It's a sort of low cost, high result thing they should be doing. And I'm delighted for it. But the bottom line is, it is not, it's unreal. I'll give an example. The other day, last week, I was on the BBC national debate program, and one of the questions came in, and I had a Labour politician, a Tory politician, a Lib Dem politician in this debate. And the question came in about, basically, should we not be, what was it? What would people think? How would Trump react if Russia invaded Florida? And they all went, and I said, well, okay, but if Russia had invaded Florida, back when Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, that would mean that Obama, Biden, and Trump one did nothing. You can't ask them. It's not as if it happened today.
This has been going on for 15 years. I mean, this is a long play here.
The other thing was, we've got to back Ukraine 100%. And I asked the question, what does 100% mean? Does it mean British soldiers? The ones you denounce as right-wing, the ones you denounce as racist, because it's the white working class who are the British soldiers. Does that mean that our lives are lost securing that? Is that what you mean? Does that mean we empty our treasury securing that? What's doing? Chasing a pipe dream of Ukraine retaking the Crimea, which it cannot do.
Yes.
And there is a dishonesty in much of Europe and the UK about what we can do and how we can support the Ukraine. Look, Ukraine is absolutely the injured party here, without any question. And Russia is, without any doubt, the aggressor. But reality bites.
It does. Plus, you have no military to speak of anymore. I mean, that I was going to ask you about the UK armed forces. I mean, they're less than the size of the U.S. Marine Corps at this point in total.
We could probably provide one armored division.
Yeah,
one right now.
Which you know, in the French can do about the same, and the Germans maybe less. So I mean,
Poles could probably do one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you really can't send an effective force to Ukraine if the US
no, absolutely not. It'd be peacekeepers. We're wearing blue helmets and getting shot at by both sides. Yes. But the fact is, what Trump has managed to do in real politics is to shake the tree so hard that the European countries are starting to realize they're going to have to pay for their own defense, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
They don't like it, and they rail against it, and they point nasty fingers and point and shout nasty slogans at America. But it is a good thing. It is good for us, and it's good for the world that we actually start taking our own defense seriously. We have been subsidized. We have been living under American umbrella for a very long time. But America can't afford all the umbrellas in the world, and it has China to deal with.
Exactly.
So we have to pick up and start building our own umbrella. Yeah.
So, last question is: does the special? I mean, there's some tension because of some of the UK policies of, anti-free speech, et cetera, as you mentioned. Does the special relationship get rebuilt under Trump? And I guess maybe when Nigel comes in, it'll be fully redeveloped. Your
But that
thoughts
will
on
be
that?
after Trump's gone.
Yeah.
But right, I think the special relationship exists in the minds of Britain rather than the minds of America, and always has. The treatment of the UK before the Second World War, during the Second World War, and after the Second World War was diabolical by America because it could. Even Vance, I'm delighted to see, has recognized that America's response to Suez was possibly the most stupid thing they've ever done. Kicked Britain and France out of the Middle East and not do anything to follow it up, creating the Islamist menace that we have now. But it was nice to see Vance recognizing that. America's policy of their major war aim wasn't defeat of Hitler. It was to strip Europe of its, particularly Britain and France, of its position in the world, because America wanted to kick us Monroe doctrines writ large and across the whole world. This was an error. What's it? Kipling's poem, "Take up the white man's burden."
Yeah,
it did. America just didn't do that. It's all very well kicking us out, but you weren't prepared to do the next bit. And so, therefore, the idea of the special relationship is a myth that the UK likes to believe. That does not mean we do not have a very strong relationship, particularly in intelligence sharing with the Five Eyes, particularly in a whole series of things. There's a great deal of mutual respect between our military and your military, particularly at the high end. At the special forces end, there is a recognition of serious quality and ability. The French still have the Foreign Legion, who are very good indeed, and anybody suggests otherwise is fooling themselves. We do have very effective military assets, but they're small. We can't operate in a proper war without American support, and we have to learn that that's a reality. But in Trump, we have the most Anglophile president for decades. We had it the first time round, and we blew the opportunity. We have it again, and I think, to be fair, Starmer is, whilst he's sort of pontificating about Ukraine and things of this sort, it does look as if he's doing his actual, given his left-wing background, given all the rest of it, he is doing his level best to come to some accommodation with the White House, and that's a very good thing with the American administration.
Well, it was a love fest, at least on camera, between Trump and Starmer.
Yes, but what the devil was he wearing on his feet? You don't tell him at the White House themselves.
He's going Zelensky on us. Who knows? Wayne, thank you very much. How do people follow you? How do they stay? I mean, your wit is amazing, and you know what I love is your photos of old English cathedrals. Just amazing.
My hobby is when I go to have to do something, say a public meeting at the other end of the country, I try and give myself a few hours of bimble time, so I can bimble round some Norman churches or things that are 1,000 years old. It is the repository of our culture, our history, our beauty, and I love it.
It's connected to us as well. So,
no, it's at Towler, Towler. I know you call me Towler, and I don't care.
Oh, I should. I'm making a note. It's my.
They all do. Life's too short to worry about it. I know what I'm called. If other people get it wrong, who cares? But it's no, and yeah. So at Towler, it's. I'm delighted to be on. Delighted to be with you again, and crack on.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll have you back. Take care. Cheers.
Pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
So we're back on the SCIF. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you checking out cdm.press every day, morning, noon, and night. Put us in your daily scan, because we need to grow our traffic and our viewership. So please tell your friends, share the links to the show, because it's really important to get our message out there. We're being suppressed, attacked constantly. We're dealing with stuff all day long. Cyber, IT, legal, all kind of stuff. People don't want this information out there. So continue to support us. Main way to do that is with your traffic. You can sign up for our no ad subscriptions. That's a real big help as well. $10 a month or $100 a year. You get access to all of our sites, all of our really important news from the local level, all the way to the Middle East, to Ukraine, to Eastern Europe, to Asia. And we just continue pumping it out. And, our view is we build it, they will come. And we continue to bring highly credible stuff. And as that comes, we'll continue to just bring you what we think is the best thing you need to know to be the smartest guy around the water cooler. We talked about the Trump tariffs in the meeting with Starmer, actually the Oval Office meeting today. There's going to be a trade deal with the UK. I mean, I haven't checked the news to see what was announced, but Gawain Towler said he was hopeful that there would be a free speech clause in that, but it looks like not. But Trump and Vance and others are going after Germany, and they're pushing back. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. The other story I wanted to bring you is South Korea. This is there's shades of 2020 here, in that the communists in South Korea, the government, which has captured the government now, which is again a tactic. Our government was captured by the CCP under Biden, and what they are doing is stopping people from coming in and viewing the voting, monitoring the voting, etc., closing the curtain around the counting. This is very similar. So to me, it just exactly highlights what happened with China during the 2020 election and how they were heavily involved, along with the globalists in our government. And Gawain is right. All of this is focused on China, and we need to continue the effort of that is the threat, not these regional conflicts around the world, in Gaza, in Yemen, and in Ukraine especially, they need to end, and the dying needs to stop, because this is a way to weaken the United States, to expend our military. They hoped we would send troops over there, and NATO is captured by China, or at least the EU leadership is, and that's something we need to realize and understand as we move, into this new golden age. China is executing unrestricted warfare against us, and that has to stop. So the story in South Korea is big, and it looks like they have captured that government and are going to put in a pro-communist leader, pro-CCP leader in the presidential election on June 3rd. But we wanted to highlight that so you're aware of it. The other story we talked about is Bill Gates. Bill is shutting down his foundation. They're going to give away the $200 billion, obviously, to causes that he likes. There is a long history of Bill Gates and the foundation harming children in Africa as they tested these vaccines. And some would say, and some have theorized, that actually this was a depopulation effort rather than a health effort, and to vaccinate, in air quotes, the population in order to get what kind of demographic outcome you wanted. And so they're shutting down. But this is also a pattern. All of the people involved in this pandemic, not all of them, but a lot of them are slowly trying to slink away and avoid accountability and consequences. And we don't want that to happen. And we're going to continue to talk about what these people actually did. Next story before we have at the top of the hour, by the way, Pete Blaber, and we're going to dig into some disclosures out of Ukraine, further disclosures with Pete, always a wealth of information. The German government is becoming under MERS, which is the one that is trying to ban the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. The German government is very anti-Russian and becoming more so, and pushing the war, the pro-war agenda in Ukraine and elsewhere. And this ties into what Gawain was talking about, the May Day parade in Moscow, where yesterday they closed the airports, and we have from sources on the ground that there was just mass confusion in all the airports. The internet was off across the city and will be through the May Day parade on May 9th. Some of this may be to stop communications with drones or whatever using GPS. I'm not sure the logistics of that, but the government has shut down the internet in Moscow, and they are concerned about drone attacks on the May Day parade, which is tomorrow. And that is a story because we have such an expertise in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, Moldova, Poland, Russia, that will bring it here. So if you want to know what's going on tomorrow with the parade, we will be on it, and come here to get the latest information in this really important story. But Germany is becoming very anti-Russia to the point of harming their own economy. And under MERS, it's getting worse. And the theory from this writer, which is a writer of ours in Montenegro, in the former Yugoslavia, says that this is going to push AfD into power, and they can't stop it because of the anti-Russian, which is anti-German economy, because it's anti-Russian energy, which Germany needs. And their economy has been brought to its knees by the incompetent and captured government that is in Germany now. Again, all of this is tied together. And this is the story about the Moscow airports yesterday. Really a lot of chaos. People were on planes for 10 to 12 hours. They couldn't move. You know how that gets when the bathrooms clog up and there's no food and water for 12 hours with children and elderly on the plane. It becomes a disaster. And that's what happened in Moscow yesterday. The airports were a disaster. Flights were all canceled, and people were left stranded in the airport. People in other countries couldn't get to Moscow, and just really caused complete chaos and uncertainty for the population. And as Gawain said, this was brought about by Zelensky threatening to bomb the May Day parade. And so the Russians are taking that threat very seriously. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we'll have Pete Blaber, former Delta Force commander. We're going to dig into Ukraine, which is a follow-on of this story. We'll be right back.
Ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALK. Someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALK, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official
by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20. And we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen aircraft.
Yes!
So, I should say, alppouch.com. For sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches. The American Lip Pillow on sale now.
Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We want to talk about Ukraine, and let me pull that down, but I'm going to bring in Pete Blaber, former Delta Force commander, who's a friend of the show and one of our most trusted analysts and really insight into what's happening in these conflicts around the world. Pete, thanks for coming on, my friend. Appreciate you joining us today in the second hour.
Good morning, Todd. Great to be here again.
So you brought to my attention some stuff in Ukraine, and I don't want to like step on your sources or anything, but tell us what you're thinking is what's going on there that people should be aware of.
Yeah, pretty much more of the same is the best way to sum it up. I have a number of good friends, good sources. I've written those articles on Substack, and amazed at how many people have contacted me with positive reinforcement, and also just saying, hey, can I share some other things with you? And they do. And the kind of aggregate of that is what I like to talk about here. And the best way to sum it up is that everything that we talked about in my article about, dear President Trump, it's time to pull all Americans out, is still going on.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of that comes from the fact that I'm a big supporter of President Trump's appointees, Hexeth, Wickoff, Tulsi Gabbard. Even Marco Rubio, I think he's doing a great job. The one thing they don't have is an empirical, hands-on understanding of how the interagency process works. And Mike Benz calls it the blob, which is a great metaphor. But you really have to understand how it works, not just to get anything done. And in this context, I'm talking foreign policy, overseas, operations. But you have to understand its power and its potency once it's set in place. And that's what we have running Ukraine, this interagency blob. And if you haven't been part of it, you can't understand how deeply entrenched it is. And the easiest way to describe it to our viewers is almost everyone who's over there was put into their position or appointed by a Biden appointee. The Biden appointees are gone. but all the people they put in place are still there. And so, before I get into some of the specifics, the reason it's so important to understand that is we cannot present ourselves as the primary facilitators of the peace process without credibility. And we can never achieve credibility as long as we're also the primary providers of the war coordination and execution. And that's what's happening over there. And, and the worst thing about it is the individuals who are doing it are not good at it. And, in no particular order, he said a lot of the State Department and agency personnel specifically, because they make up the majority of the people run things in Kyiv, they're just, they're dug in like a tick in a bobcat's butt. And the reason is it's a great assignment over there. Kyiv, you and I have both been there. It's a beautiful city, and one of the great kind of ironies of this war, I think a lot of Americans think, wow, Ukraine is this, massive war zone, everything's destroyed. It's not. All of that is eastern Ukraine, where the ethnic Russians live.
I mean, there's the occasional missile strike, but on an apartment building
into a factory. They're very precise missile strikes. Very much care appears to be taken not to create collateral damage. But back to living there, Kyiv is a dynamic city. It's a fun city to be in. It's a beautiful city architecturally. It's thriving. The nightclubs are thriving. The coffee shops are thriving. And if you're an American government employee living there, you're making great money. And I'll just point this out. A lot of people don't know this. In the military, when a sergeant lives in a combat zone for 1 month, Afghanistan, Iraq, he gets $225 a month. In the State Department and the agency, you get 33% of your base pay. So a low paid agency or State Department person makes around 120 grand a year. So 10 grand a month, a third of that is $3,333, and that's tax-free money on your paycheck.
So you're saying this is a war payment, a stipend that comes in.
They're making combat zone pay.
Yeah,
they're living in luxury accommodations, and one of the things my buddy brought up that again you and I understand. There's no shortage of beautiful women in Kyiv, and they are all over the place. And the Ukrainian intelligence service, who is classically trained by the USSR intelligence services, understands how simple and how effective honeypot operations are. And two of my buddies both commented on this. You will not believe how often this happens and how they put their hooks into you with these women. And so
just for the audience sake, let me say, just so people understand, you're saying you're describing a situation where American employees are kept there in a very good lifestyle with luxury accommodations, with lots of money and women are supplied by the SBU or whatever, or at least attempted to. And these are very beautiful women. It's known Ukrainian women are very beautiful, and so it's like a paradise for these contractors that go over there and employees of the State Department, and so they don't want to leave, and the war continues. Is my point?
Yes,
that's
yes.
what you're saying.
And I'm glad you brought up contractors, because there's a huge, obviously, they outnumber the government employees, and they get the same, the same pay scale I talked about, the same accommodations. You don't want to leave, and so it goes back to. I wrote that article titled "Dear President Trump, It's Time to Pull All Americans Out of Ukraine," and it's on Substack, and it just reinforces that same thing. We've got to pull these people out. They're not going to leave And again, what President Trump has to understand, which is hard to understand unless someone's telling you from the ground or someone with experience, that these people don't want to leave, and they're not going to leave. And so you're going to continue to get this warmongering, keep fighting, we can win this thing attitude going, when we should be telling them the opposite. We should be, advising them with logic for their own good. And, again, to our viewers, because Todd, you and I talk so much offline, neither of you or I have ever taken sides in this war. We're not pulling for Russia. We're not, against Ukraine. In fact, you would say we're very much supporters of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people because we know what's happening and we know
what's being done to
consequences.
We see the horrific death, and we want it to stop. I mean, the people who are for Ukraine are killing 3,000 or 4,000 of them a week. So it's insane. And so I agree with you. I mean, I had a Ukrainian refugee family in my house for 6 months when the war started. So we are pro-Ukraine. They've helped me, but that there's a faction in Ukraine that wants the war going. But on the honeypot stuff, I would bet that there's part of the U.S. government, whether I don't know where in the State Department or whatever, that is probably telling the SBU. I'm talking during the Biden years, and maybe even now, that, hey man, this guy coming over, you can honeypot him. This is his weaknesses or whatever.
Yeah.
I would bet there's coordination on that.
I think you're right. Yeah. So that's one thing, and that that's the top line, but it goes on, and I talked about the incompetence. It's nothing happens in an efficient way over there. Part of the reason I have so many people coming forward is they're totally frustrated. And again, they're objective. If they're over there to do a job, they want to be able to do it, but they can't do it because you've got people who are brought in for all the wrong reasons. A big part of the problem over there, the bureaucracy, is that our embassy, which is known as Fortress America, is far removed from where the Ukrainian Department of Defense, the Ukrainian intelligence agencies are at. There's almost no face-to-face contact. If one of their Ukrainian counterparts tries to make face-to-face contact, and you can read about this online, it's almost impossible. It's very difficult to get into Fortress America because, just like the Green Zone in Iraq, their primary mission has shifted from supporting Ukraine to force protection. And you've got these redundant processes that are all aimed to protect these Americans who are over there supposedly to help out the Ukrainians. So the bureaucracy is the same as it was back in 2021, which is a killer because Ukraine is already an archaic government system. It's led by an actor comedian who has no idea, no corporate knowledge, no knowledge of how to organize and lead, and that goes right down the line. So there's also a lot of frustration about interagency coordination. So that's another thing. Another point that was brought up to me was an observation from the front lines and just how good the Russians have gotten at integrating fires. It's
talk to our audience about what is that, Pete? I mean, I know what it is, but tell our audience from a high level what that is.
So integrating fires is just the ability for a guy on the ground to spot a target, or and that includes a drone operator who's usually within 5 kilometers of his target. And then him to make a call back, hey, I've got a target, I need fire support. And for that to go to a place where it can be instantly disaggregated and sent out to the proper fire support sources. So you out there, you've got artillery, you've got mortars, you've got other attack drones,
air
and
power.
obviously, right, rockets, MLRS, and
Mhm.
you even have missiles. If it's a large target, then missiles, and they have done a amazing job, which really is something all warriors call for in every war, which is, the guys on the ground should be the ones that drive what's happening on the battlefield. And the Russians seem to have achieved or come as close to achieving that high standard as possible.
So let me ask you, because the knock on the Soviet troops and the Russian training, Soviet training, was that there was no NCO structure that could take command on the ground, that it was all top-down driven. You're saying that may have changed and they've become more effective at the guy on the ground bringing in fires? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Well, that's the observation, and you can see it in a lot of the videos. You can see a time lapse. I'll send you a couple.
Yeah.
You can see the time lapse from when a drone spots a target to when the fires are put on the target, and it's under 2 minutes, which is pretty incredible. I believe in the beginning of the war it was about 2 hours, and on the Ukrainian side, it's again a constant source of frustration. So my buddies are speaking up for the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian soldiers, and how frustrating it is. Many cases it doesn't happen. And as I pointed out in that same article, dear President Trump, a big reason for that is the U.S. System that was implemented over there, which is the disconnected hierarchy, whether it's in Wiesbaden in Germany or back in Kyiv. That's where the war is being run in the Battlestar Galactica tactical operations centers with 154-inch video screens, 100 computers, 100 staff officers.
And I can just see all of them with their masks on,
Yeah, there's a picture. I have a picture of that, and it's very true. And again, we're not just critiquing here. The most important thing about this war and American participation in is we learn from it. We learn that we should never get into this situation again, but we also need to learn what is now an exclamation point on what we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that is that this system does not work.
Well, we switched sides. We've taken on the Soviet tactics, and they've taken on Western tactics.
So great point. That's probably the lesson that you can see right now in this war. We've switched. We're the old Soviet system, full of bureaucracy, top heavy, and they have switched. If necessity is the mother of invention, adapting and to a situation in front of you is the father, and that's what's going on with Russia. I think they just adapted. They realized they had to, and from everything that's happening on the ground, they've done it well.
Pete, I need to take a break, so I want to take a break and come back and talk to you about where the war goes from here. Do you have,
okay, I want to say one little more thing too about Azov before we go on to that.
Go ahead. Oh, you want to do it before?
Just everyone talks about denazification, and then the response from Ukraine is we don't need to. They don't exist. They do exist. The Azov Battalion is now a corps-size unit over there, and they are taking over almost every aspect of the military, to include the military-industrial complex.
And they're threatening Zelensky not to end the war, or beware.
A brigade commander last week threatened to kill him if he cedes any territory. So it's another real aspect, totally frustrating. Another reason you can't get anything done. and another reason why we need to bring the war to a close as quickly as possible.
Well, it may not come to a close. We may just have to walk away from it, which concerns me, and I want to talk about that also because the mineral deal kind of keeps us there. We'll be right back with Pete Blaber.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like you had a stroke. You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You are not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this. You take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
So we're here with Pete Blaber. Thanks for joining us on the SCIF. I want to give a shout out to our Armed Forces Press merch site. Go to the armedforces.press, top left site, click on the sweatshirt there, and you'll be taken to the store. Lots of cool gear to look good in style in the gym and get gains in style. And I got my coffee cup right here. So check out all the gear. Pete, we were talking about, I left off with the mineral deal. This seems to tie us into the war. That's kind of not what I voted for. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's one of those President Trump things that you kind of have to trust.
Strategic ambiguity, I think.
Right. And I agree. I think in part, President Trump's such a businessman, and it is such a disgrace that the Biden administration just gave away whatever it was, 200 billion or 300 billion without any strings attached. While we started the war, we in the EU overthrew the duly elected Ukrainian government because they wouldn't take an EU loan for $15 billion. And after we overthrew the Ukrainian government and the neo-Nazis took over, the Ukrainians accepted the terms of that EU loan. And that was the beginning of what's now, I believe, $500 billion that they owe the EU. So, I think President Trump was trying to, if nothing else, do something symbolically to get some of our taxpayer money back. I'm not
I think
sure.
the deal, all it does, we have to jointly put money in a fund and we get the revenue, but our military contributions going forward can count to that contribution. So essentially, it takes care of future contributions. But
Right.
anyway,
And when you think about it, though, Todd, in the practical application of it, just to even consider it happening is so many years away.
Oh, completely.
We now have all of the coal mines, excuse me, they now have all of the coal mines captured in eastern Ukraine. So, Russia doesn't need coal, but Ukraine does. Russia has plenty of it. The real mineral rich, area is up in Donetsk. And so that's the one that's been unharvested and that everyone's is really licking their chops for. But think about just, guys in giant cranes, giant vehicles, what you see mining, even here in the United States, for that to come to fruition, for that to happen is years away. And then I believe President Trump's already said we're not going to have military on the ground. So the only way they could go in is if, there's the force protections at a level that they don't have to worry about. And that is even more years away. So
unless there's some kind of deal with
more,
Russia, I think
yeah,
there's
I
an
think it's
overarching.
more symbolic than anything else. And so, I kind of dismissed it as just that.
Interesting. I have this video from Kellogg. Do you want to play that? Is that worth something or not?
Yeah, the Kellogg, the Hodges one, you mean?
I'm sorry, not Kellogg, Kennedy.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. This, and we can talk about just, I guess, the governmental reaction here.
It's going to get any better until we make it clear to Mr. Putin that we are willing to turn him and his country into fish food. I don't think it's going to get any better until we make it clear to Mr. Putin that we are willing to turn him and his country into fish food. I don't think it's going to get any better.
Well, that was interesting. I don't know if that was the video you wanted, or I just pulled that off the net. So that was Senator Kennedy. I mean, obviously, bellicose there and continuing the war. I mean, he's part of the blob, I would think.
Yeah, I in the past I've liked him. I'm not from the South, but I've always, I always loved the little Southern aphorisms. It's crazier than a June bug in May. But I don't know what turning Russia into fish food is. Unfortunately for him, just spitting those words out exposes him as being, completely naive.
On the payroll.
Well, yeah, or just completely naive to reality of not just the situation in Ukraine, but of our military, their military, and what makes sense. Like thinking 2 steps into the future about what you're advising. We're not going to go to war with Russia. To threaten Russia militarily is not only senseless, but it's laughable. Unless you're talking about nuclear war, and if he's talking about that, he should be, resign and go get some therapy.
Yeah, well, that's where it's going. Did you see Putin? I was talking with Gawain Towler. I'm corrected. I said his name wrong. About the May Day parade. The Europeans and even him, which I disagree with, are all about threatening the May Day parade in Red Square tomorrow with drone attacks. It was drone attacks last night in Moscow, or the day before in Moscow. Big airport chaos. And now Putin is threatening to use the Orezhnik hypersonic missile onto Kiev if that happens. So what say you?
Yeah, I mean, there's there's another tape of Hodges, the guy we've had on before, saying, "Hey, the Ukraine should send hundreds of drones, and that is a legitimate military target. If I was advising them, which he is, then I would tell them to, bomb it into, into oblivion." And, listening to him is just like a living metaphor of what Colonel Hackworth called the perfume princes. And, a description of incompetent and irresponsible general officers.
Yes.
And Hackworth listed five things that describe a perfume prince, and I went and looked them up. And the number one is they make rousing speeches about the necessity of a certain action or project, but when the actual work needs to be done, they're nowhere to be seen. And I love that. It's also like an older kid who tells a little kid to do something dangerous that he won't do himself, even though the little kid doesn't understand or know any better and has no concept of the consequences. And that's the issue here. To these people recommending, this indiscriminate bombing of a parade. His recommend, this parade includes 29 foreign dignitaries, including, as we know, the president of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, Robert Fico, president of Serbia, a bunch of African leaders, 29 of them. And it's not just that they're there, and it's not just 29 dignitaries and the potential implications of killing the president of China, but it just shows you that these guys do not think 2 steps in the future, and reinforces. Zelensky hears all this, and Zelensky has proven himself as a senseless decision maker too. He's an actor comedian. We should say that every time we say his name, because he's micromanaging the war also, and he doesn't need an insane advisor chirping in his ear, because when he hears insanity, he's just going to his own insanity is going to be reinforced instead of dissuaded. So it doesn't make sense. Putin has every right to threaten that. He's shown great restraint on what he has destroyed in Ukraine, because he's proven he doesn't want to destroy Ukraine. And I'm not going to go over the demands that him and Lavrov have repeated over and over, but they're legitimate demands. And they're not going to destroy Kyiv for one main reason, which again you and I understand. It's the birthplace of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Well, it's the birthplace of Russia. It's the Kiev Rus.
Russia,
I mean, it's
right.
where
I believe it was called Kievan Rush, and it's the birthplace in 988. And so he's shown great restraint about that. But this is another reason why we have to pull all these guys out, because Hodges and the rest of them. It's like, when you turn the light on in the middle of the night in your kitchen and you spot a cockroach, where there's 100 more behind your appliances and behind the walls. And that's the problem. You've got this mentality. They're all, Hodges is a Biden supporter, a Biden appointee, and they're all caught in this dilemma. They have been advocates of this war from the beginning, which was foolhardy and is just as foolhardy in the beginning as it is now. Not only have they been advocates, but they've been telling everyone who would listen that Ukraine can win it. In the beginning, they said within 1 year, and they said not only win it, but this will lead to the collapse of Russia and the overthrow of Putin. And of course, none of that's happened. So instead of changing their minds,
I mean, that was not true. I mean, it was not possible.
Exactly. But they're all on record as having said it, and they've painted themselves into a corner instead of doing the right logical thing, which is to go, guys, I've now learned, what I thought was not reality of the situation. Instead of doing that, they keep doubling down in hopes
That's the mark of a leader, right? I mean, that's what Trump does. He pivots. If something's not working, he's like, this isn't working. I'm moving on. I mean, and that we need some American senior officers, even those retired, to come out and say, I was wrong and this needs to end. We need a whole cadre of officers who are supposed to be, honorable people to come out and say we made a mistake. That's the honorable thing to do, and stop this killing, because it's not helping Ukraine. Ukraine won't exist.
No, it won't. Yeah. And he's holding back those hypersonic missiles, and they're not to be messed with. Again, everything they've said is wrong. They've called Russia over and over a paper tiger, that Putin's just a bluff, it just bluffs and he won't ever do it. And, I think they laugh at them, these guys in Russia, but they're not going to keep laughing, because they've got guys dying on the battlefield. It's not an easy war by any means.
Both sides. I mean, it's dying on both sides. It's stupid. Yeah. I mean, if you have a son, I mean, or relatives or young or children or anything, I mean, you can't support this. I mean, it's not like they're invading the United States. We have to defend our homeland. This is a border war in Europe.
And Todd, I think that's where, again, you and I know our common ground, and a lot of other veterans. It's not because we've seen combat that, that's just a tiny part of it. It's because we've seen what led up to the combat and what happened afterwards. Yeah. And what led up to it, we find, is rarely what really was happening and what really should have caused the war. And then what happened afterwards is never what they said would happen. And, Afghanistan and Iraq are both perfect examples of that. And we also understand the reality, the consequences, the Gold Star families, who that have an empty hole in their heart that remains for the rest of their lives.
Goes away. It can't
exactly.
Go away. Yeah.
And it's happened here. This is, I think we're past World War II numbers, at least for the U.S. We lost, I believe, between 500,000 and 600,000 in World War II. Ukraine's far surpassed that already. And Russia probably half of that. But that would still be 250 to 300,000 men.
There's another aspect to this, is that we lied to the Ukrainian people. I have sources on the ground, and I hear from some of them women in the West who are saying, we have to keep fighting. Russia's the enemy. Biden's going to save us. I mean, we lied to them. And there was a thing out in one of the, I can't remember who it was now, but a retired general said that we gave them just enough to bleed, not to win. And because we just wanted ongoing combat. I mean, and they've said this over and over, we're bleeding the Russians dry, and that's a U.S. goal. Well, in the meantime, you're depopulating Ukraine with death and misery and hell. I find that completely dishonorable. And it's still going on, and the Ukrainians still think we're going to save them, and we're not.
Yeah,
I mean, we're just not. So it's really sad to see. Anything else, Pete, you want to get out?
No, I think that about covers it.
Well, I want to have you back, as we're going to stay on this theme. People are saying, why do you keep talking about Ukraine? Because the damn war needs to end. So, and we're going to stay on it until it does. And then after, we're going to try to help because media is really important, and coverage is really important, because it drives policy, and it provides transparency and accountability to politicians. So we're going to stay on that. But Pete, thank you very much. We'll have you back.
Sounds good, Todd. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's go 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the Alp again.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Don't forget we're on podcast. If you missed the show, you can catch us on Rumble, X, Gettr, YouTube. It's posted after the show. But we're on podcast. You can listen to it in your car, walking the dog, whatever you're doing. And you can even turn it up to 2 times speed or whatever you can handle and get through the intel brief quicker and get really smarter than most people you know. I want to just give a shout out to my first novel, Currency. It's been re-released through History of Books, still as timely and prescient as ever. I'll read you a few comments on the back. Todd Wood's economic thriller Currency spans 3 generations and includes tales of pirates and America's early leaders. Currency kept me curious until the very end, a unique page-turner. And that was by Bill Gertz, senior editor of the Washington Free Beacon. Now he's with the Washington Times, one of the best intelligence guys in D.C., reporters, journalists. And then Currency combines history, finance, romance, and action into a timely and entertaining read on a subject that has serious economic and national security implications. My wife and I enjoyed both reading it. Honorable David M. Walker, former U.S. Comptroller General. There's much more, which I'll let you know later as we talk about this book, but please go to ltoddwood.com. You can get a signed copy or History of Books. You can get direct from them and support the publisher, or anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Books a Million, books, anywhere you can order it from any bookstore if they don't have it on the shelf. So please check it out. The follow-on versions of this, not versions, but I guess sequels of Currency, Sugar, and Delta, and Motherland will be out via History of Books soon. And people love the book because it gives you just a really good insight into what's literally happening as we speak geopolitically, but you also learn a lot, and it's just a page-turning novel. We call it faction, not fiction. So please check it out. I talked about the Christian thing. I want to play this tape one more time, and we're going to end on the massacres of Christians all around the world, and we're going to be speaking up on this. We're going to be bringing in a lot of guests to talk about this, but it's going to be one of our focuses going forward. But I just want people to be aware of this. So I'm going to play this one more time.
Vamos, Nicolás!
destroyed by Muslims in our village, in our area. Please, we need help. We need help. We need security help. We need everybody's help. Please pray for us. This is Oasis Church in Class 9, under the government.
If you want your girls, bring back our Engwa. Bring back our Engwa.
This is live. But our follow and I are out of the house. It is brother Naaman that we don't know his whereabouts. Whether he's there in the plane, or they have taken him, or he has escaped somewhere, we don't know.
Da sako ga gwamnan Zamfara wanda ake ce Dauda Lawal. Saboda Dauda a gaya mamu abubuwan da muke kwatanta zamu.
So there you see it, persecutions of Christians in Africa and really all over the world. We just saw thousands of them killed in Syria. And, you know, frankly, the U.S. government response was not enough. And they're cozying up to Galani, who's running the Syrian government, the al-Qaeda former guy who has a suit and a haircut and a beard now, trimmed his beard. And so they're tolerating this, and we're not going to let them tolerate it. So we're going to have this as a theme going forward to protection of Christian minorities around the world. And it has to happen because this is not okay. So I hope you really enjoyed the SCIF today. We have a big show tomorrow, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday, Eastern. We'll have some really cool guests on tomorrow and talk about the subjects of the day. Thank you for joining us. Please tell your friends, spread the links, cdm.press, put us in your daily scan. And thank you for joining us. Appreciate the viewership, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10.